But first up, joining us now, great pleasure on set, Gordon Chang, Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow. Gordon, as always, welcome. You heard my riff on China, but you make an interesting point off camera. Let's see, a couple years ago, it looked like China had the inside track, midwifing some kind of conversation or deal between Saudis and Iran, which is not what anyone would have wanted.
Yeah, spring of 2023, Beijing brokered the deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They again exchanged diplomats, and they had a number of agreements where they would cooperate. And then in July of last year, you had 14 Palestinian factions go to the Chinese capital, sign the Beijing Declaration, and it looked like China was in charge of the region. But then President Trump is inaugurated. He goes to the 3 Gulf states in May. He gets Syria to become a Chinese friend. You know, he drops the sanctions from the Assad era, and the region is completely changed. And as we saw yesterday, everybody wanted to be with President Trump in Egypt. So this is clearly a change. China is out of the Middle East. Russia is out of the Middle East. The United States is the stir the drink, you know.
Yes, they stirred, no, the straw that stirred the drink. And the two warriors, Netanyahu and Trump, working together, by the way, not afraid to use military force where appropriate, as it clearly was. So China, we talked about this earlier, China bet on the wrong horse. China bet on Iran, financing Iran. They're the largest purchaser of their oil. China's also betting on Russia. I believe they're the largest purchaser of Russian oil.
By far.
How do you see that? How does that play out?
Well, you know, Trump is now going to turn his attention, as you said, to the Ukraine war, and that's not going to be good for either Russia or China. China has given all-in support for the Russian war effort, and it's not just money. It's also weapons, targeting data, and even their Chinese soldiers at the front in Ukraine. They're mercenaries, but they're also PLA, People's Liberation Army officers that are in Ukraine right now. And so clearly you have China's basically backing this war. And Putin wouldn't be fighting today. He wouldn't be able to fight were it not for China.
Right. So what do you think it is? The Chinese bureaucrats, Communist Party bureaucrats, are watching the Middle East, and shall we say all their dreams are evaporated. Okay, Trump comes in and blows up they bet on the wrong horse. They watch the United States and their powerful military force, right? The B-2 bombers, and of course working with Israel to destroy Iran and its capabilities. China was one of the builders of Iran, for heaven's sake. What do you think they think watching not only this show of diplomacy, which they're cut out of, and probably investment in business and trade, which they're going to cut out of, but strength, absolute brute force strength?
Well, there are a couple things here. First of all, I don't think that they understand Trump, and they certainly don't understand the United States. So I think that they're scratching their heads. But also, they can see that Xi Jinping's diplomacy is failing, and that's going to have political consequences because the Communist Party is going to hold its 4th plenum starting the 20th of this month. There are a lot of rumors about leadership changes. I don't know if those rumors are true or not, but the point is Xi Jinping can't be helped by Trump's successes.
Do you think that they'll meet in South Korea in 2 weeks, Trump and Xi? Do you think that'll happen?
I sort of think that it will.
It's a big stock market question, I suppose, but more importantly, geopolitically, do you think it'll happen?
I think that there's a bigger chance they won't meet than most people believe. And the problem is because there is so much turmoil in the Communist Party right now. Nobody can make a concession to the United States. That means Trump is not going to be happy to just have a meeting where they fight, but also because, you know, maybe Xi Jinping is not going to want to travel abroad. Remember, he's in trouble right now, which means that if he goes abroad, he may not be able to come back, and he may not want to leave because he wants to make sure that he can control other people.
All right. Gordon Chang, the best of the best. I got to jump. I think there's a Rose Garden ceremony we have to report on. Thank you ever so much.